Well, hello and welcome to I Love Gay today. And we are here. This is like a blast from the past. And we are here with Mark Olmsted from Los Angeles. How are you, Mark?
I'm good. I'm doing great.
It's just funny. You and I, we crossed paths in the 90s when you worked at Genre Magazine, which I don't even know if everybody even knows that title anymore, but it was one of the largest gay men magazine in the country. And you were there and we were creating the website for you guys. And so we used to we used to work together a little bit there.
Yeah, in the days of the dawn of the internet. So it was the Wild West. Uh, I barely understood, and Matt I is a few steps ahead of me. But
Well, here we are now. It's like 25 years later, and but it's fascinating. And of course, we just we worked on projects together, but we never got to know each other that well. But I feel like I know you so much better now based upon the stories that have come out from both yourself and articles that have been written about you. But you've had quite a journey, and you have a book, Ink from the Pen, a prison memoir. So, but yeah, just what inspired you? Even like, I know you're a writer, but while you were in prison, that you were in prison, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I mean, you must have somewhere along the way realized, I think I can turn this into a positive.
well, the my sister, who is a goddess, okay,
Yeah.
uh, who recovered remarkably well from the incredible news that I had a life of crime.
Yeah.
And once I made clear that was definitely completely in my past,
Yeah.
I started writing. I wrote a lot of letters, and I'd always been a writer, but I'd lost a lot of that while my drug addiction took hold.
Yeah.
I wrote a lot of poetry, which is weirdly still not bad, even though it was written in meth. Poetry is not that is good for short sentences. Um, so I wrote home almost every day. And she just said a month into it, she said, "These letters are fantastic. I'm
Wow.
going to type them up and put them on a blog every day."
Yeah.
And once I knew I was being read almost in real time,
Yeah.
it's like it caused me to sort of watch my experience on a level that was, how they say, if you watch two atoms, you change their behavior just because
Yeah.
they're being observed. Well, I swear to God, these inmates around me, they seem to have stepped up to produce a little playlet for me every day, a little short story, a little blog entry. And so I found myself as a writer, but it also gave me a mode to survive prison,
Yeah.
and uh, 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 and to learn how to be in the present moment again without any drugs to help me be there, which are debatably effective of that.
That's,
you know, yeah, they'll help you be in get online and look for sex. So
yeah.
that's a way to be in the present, I guess. But no.
But it's really interesting because there's just so much that basically you've written this book. It's also an audio book as well, which is the part that I'm listening to right now. And but also there was this amazing GQ article that came out about you and your life and the stories from all that. And that, I think, that helped propel you quite a bit forward. But that was a few years ago though, right?
Well, what happened is that after I finished the book, which took me a while to get together, it turns out that as soon as my mother died, and I wasn't imagining her reliving everything by reading it, I wrote the book in 6 months, which was really editing all the letters I had sent to my sister
Yeah.
into like this coherent collection. And uh, I wanted to sell books, and I wanted my story to be known. And so I wrote an essay called Breaking Broke Bad, a true crime story I never would have believed if I hadn't lived it,
Yeah.
because it's outrageous. And I tweeted it to as many reporters as I could find. And Nate Penn, who was the GQ reporter, wrote me immediately back, and he said, "I'll get right back to you. I have to speak to my editor.
Yeah.
Don't go anywhere else with this," which really made me laugh because I had gotten like 3 likes on the Medium article. I mean, I just wasn't on anybody's radar. And so that took 2.5 years. The writing of the article took a year, plus the research, plus exhaustive fact checking. But the editorial changes in GQ kept delaying it. They had a new editor, and then they had to adopt all the new stories, blah, blah, blah. And then they finally, it wouldn't fit into this month or that month. And they finally decided to just put it up on GQ.com. And it got more views than any article that year. And Hollywood came knocking. And so for 36 months, they optioned it twice in a row. Warner Brothers was looking to put together, Matt Bomer was interested, and the producer, Greg Berlanti, is like super powerful. And so it kept looking like it was going to happen. And they said, don't push the book anywhere, because as soon as the pilot's on, you're going to get more offers than you can imagine to republish it, blah, blah, blah. And then COVID hit. And like a lot of, I thought, oh, great. Now everyone is going to understand what it was like for us during the early years of AIDS. You know, this fear and what it can do to you and how can it distort it. But I think what happened is it had the opposite effect, where a lot of these execs is like, no one wants to hear about AIDS schmades. Because my life of crime had everything to do with absolutely being certain that I was on the 2-year plan. Everyone around me was dying. My brother had obviously died. That was, you know, and I had absolutely zero reason to think that I would be one of the 10% really who are still standing from the early 80s.
But it's a perspective that I think it will get picked up at a certain point in that sense, because it's a compelling story. I think you did it right when you came up with that title. Broke bad and so forth, because I mean the story, my first takeaway is that it's a gay HIV man meets the series Oz, if anybody remembers Oz, and Breaking Bad, and it's like this kind of a amalgamation of all three comes together.
And I want to stick in a little Brokeback Mountain there too.
Don't we all?
But unfortunately, it's a title no one would conceivably Google. Breaking Broke Bad. I mean, so
what's interesting is like some of the interview, some of the folks that you've talked to, and it's like the things that have come out of that, where they talk about that, you've taken the psyche of seemingly outwardly detestable characters, but you've made it so that we can kind of empathize with them. So, I mean, it's not just a story about prison life. It's that it's a character-driven life that you brought to this surface.
Well, it's funny because as I put it together, it felt to me almost like this book had always been there in the future, and it willed itself into being. And it's like the muses, I call the lesbian goddesses who rule the universe. There's 3 of them. Said, I'm sorry I have to put you through all the death and all the drug addiction and the crime in order to get you to prison, but someone needs to put some faces and stories to these names. And that's really what I endeavored to do. That they were so much more like me. What the general population does, and I used to do, is we let them be warehoused invisibly, out of sight, out of mind, because it's uncomfortable. Because we imagine, what if so many people would say to me, I could never survive prison. And I'm like, yes, you could. You know what? That's what people do, And if you want to know how I do it, I was blessed to have a talent with the pen. And so I could spend the afternoon writing something and then rewriting it and rereading it and having an enormous amount of satisfaction that almost none of these guys managed to have. I could escape every day through the pen.
Plus, and you had time, and so it's a whole different perspective of things that
And I read more than I'd read in years.
Yeah.
So, and that, which a lot of inmates do, and people forget, you
Yeah.
know.
But I think the important part, in some of the interviews you've had, I noticed that it was described AIDS survivor syndrome, and it's what you were describing is that 2 year anticipation of that's all you've got. But I think that you know th- that's that's one of the cornerstones of a thought or an idea that I don't think everybody really thinks about or realizes that, yeah, especially in the 80s and so forth, there was an entire generation of men that you were a part of that really didn't anticipate or think that they were going to make it that much longer. So you just kind of live life for the day.
And what I did personally is, and I discovered only in retrospect, was that you don't realize how big a part of your brain the future takes up. This is for everybody, especially the younger you are.
Yeah.
And when I felt that that was it was toxic to dream too much about the future, and I had to make early death my friend, I literally squeezed the future down into 2 years max. And I think, you know, I'd love some doctors to investigate this. I think I actually changed the neurology of my brain.
Yeah.
And that was to my advantage, because it wasn't good to think about, when I buy a house, or you'll never buy a house, where I travel there. So I just did it. I did what I had to get the money together. I traveled a lot in the early 90s, London, Paris, was very generous, was very much the one to pick up the tab for dinner.
Sure.
Cocktails,
Mhm.
up the yin yang. Yeah, let's pick up some meth, no problem. Da, 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 da. And it was 10 years that I sort of ran out of money, but had the addiction. And then when I finally realized that I might survive this thing, which was a classic good news, bad news.
Yeah.
But when I got out of prison, the value of prison was that it was the closest thing to death I could get without dying. So I had a kind of closure. And by the time I got out, then it was like, okay, you're going to live. But getting that future, sucking it back into your brain
Yeah.
to allow yourself, it has been, I call it the disorientation of survival.
Yeah.
And that's taken years. And now, of course, now that I think I've fixed my brain,
Yeah.
now I'm at a certain age where you have to face dying like a lot of people do,
Yeah.
just of
Yeah.
cancer, heart attacks, and all the things that start
Yeah.
taking people out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, it's infuriating, because it's like, I did my quota. What do you mean? And how dare you subject me to normal aging things?
Now your fatalism is just simply what everybody has to go through once they start
Yeah,
in
and
their
then so
60s.
I did feel, and I'm still hoping, that COVID did give the general population a bit of a taste of what
Yeah. Yeah.
a very small portion of the population went through. But if it was your circle, it felt like everybody, because everybody in your circle was going through it at the same time.
Yeah. No, I would just say it's the universe had different plans for you, and so we don't always know what those are. I don't profess to have any insights into those things, but it appears that perhaps it's your story and the people you cross and the paths you cross in life, and the universe seemed to have had a different plan for you, and that's the wonderful part, no matter what the journey was to get where you're at today.
Yeah, I'm I do think that, there is no proof that what happens in your life could have ever happened any differently.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of proof that it could have only happened this way, because that's exactly what happened. So that helps me not spend too much time in regret.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are things I would have definitely done differently if I had to do it all over again, but I don't necessarily regret anything, including prison, because I have a book that, just so many, everyone who reads it, they just they say the really nicest things, and uh, and very sincere. And I reread it, and when I was listening to it first, because Michael Crouch is such a great narrator,
Yeah.
I'd followed him since he did The Great Believers, Rebecca Mackay's fantastic book,
Yeah.
and I was laughing at things that I had written and almost forgotten about. And I was like, well, this is as entertaining as I hoped it would be. It's not a grim read.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the agents who didn't even get back to me when I shopped it around were just like, gay prison memoir, I can't market this. They didn't even bother sending rejection letter. So, you know, how do you say on your own thing, believe me, it's really entertaining. Like, you know, other people have to say that about your book. You can't really. Now I can say it because so many people have said it to me.
Yeah, no, it seems like you've got some good folks in your corner now. So I would just say the most important part is I'm going to make sure to link to the GQ article, your Amazon links and so forth. Just all the support material for what, like I said, is become like this amazing story that I think, you know, it gives you a great reason to, you know, when you wake up in the morning, hopefully you have a smile on your face as you realize you might be changing some lives out there.
Well, and I'm scheduled for 2 podcasts, one which is coming out on Thanksgiving, and the other one I'm recording on Monday.
Yeah.
And they're nice. They have a nice big readership. And by the way, yeah, my option ran out at Warner Brothers, so the project is free again for you know, making a major motion picture. Exactly. or a streaming series, preferably. You know, 3 or 4 seasons.
Yeah, which makes more sense nowadays. So
yeah, I swear, I'm just being practical, you know.
No, this is great, and mostly I'm just really appreciative you were able to take a few moments of your time and just kind of share a bit of your story with our audience here as well.
Well, you know, I also really admire what you do and how you do it, and and I watch your other. I actually stop and take time to watch your other interviews with all these other people, and I don't know how you manage to stay in touch with so much stuff, like the music, because there's not enough time in the day. But you've turned me on to a few people who I wouldn't have otherwise known about.
Yeah, thank you. It all makes sense once you see the power of what we're doing on Twitter with ILoveGay, and we'll have ILoveGay music and so forth. We're a part of a lot of different lives out there through these mediums, and it's just a matter of just at the end of the day, it all comes down to everybody, almost everyone has a story to tell, and they really want to be able to kind of communicate that to folks that might want to listen. And here we are.
That's right. Yeah. And the challenge of dividing my time between writing and then reading, because I feel like, how can I ask other people to read my stuff if I don't take time to read theirs? Yeah. And then you also have to fit in a day job. So listening to music, it's just like, that's why I have background for, you know, and watching baseball, which I love, and watching football, which I love, believe it or not.
I love it. Well, thanks again for being here. And I look forward to connecting with you the next time I'm out in LA as well.
Okay, excellent. Absolutely. We'll do that. We'll do lunch. Okay.
Well, thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks a lot. So good.